Will it? Hey, oh,
Oak Life, what is good? It is Chris and Greg and Chris back at it again, and we are talking today in our Roots and Branches chat
sorry.
about where soul meets body.
Yeah, look, I get crazy when the mic round. No sense of getting hyped now, but I'm.
Yes, that was who's that artist? Who's that artist again?
Death for Cutie.
Who?
Death Cab for Cutie.
Yeah,
And they have
good song.
flagged a copyright thing just by playing that, so we'll see.
I know, right? We might get shut down. You know what I'm saying? Big Brother's always watching. But that's some good stuff, man. Yeah, this past Sunday, we were talking about the soul in our conversation. What makes our soul well? What makes our soul sing? Just kind of soul health in general. And it seemed to resonate with you all, the broader Oak Life community. Resonated with me for sure. So we're just going to keep that conversation going. Ain't that right, Chris?
That is correct. Correctamundo, my man. I'm making a banner, so I'm not good at talking and typing.
You're forgiven, dude.
Jumping on, ask a question or say what's up in the comments. We'd love to engage more. Basically, there's some, lots of different dimensions with the soul. There's so many layers to it. There's so much unknown. There's so many questions, things we can't know yet, but we kind of can speculate around. So if you have any comments or questions around the nature of the human soul, go for it. So yeah, what came up for you in the message, Greg? What things kind of stood out to you, or what questions came up?
What's interesting for me is I don't know if it's I don't even know what to call it, but since I was doing the closing song, I was highly focused on the lyrical content of the song. So when you're talking about like soul health, like what is good for our soul, I kept going back to the lyrics, and basically it's describing when I see God in nature, when I think about God, when I'm very intentional, kind of call back to an underlining theme of our previous sermon series conversation, walking in the dark. There was a lot of intentionality on rest, intentionality on just all of the different aspects that we talked about. And I think that carried over into this, like our soul is dependent on our intentionality, right? To focus our thoughts, focus our awareness, focus our presence in the moment. So that's what I was thinking about. That's what kind of came up for me. And that seemed to echo in some of the responses that we saw as well.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. Like that, I think that was kind of one of the underlying themes of it all is we need to take care of our souls. Hey Alma, how's it going? What's up? Sorry we missed you last week. But I'm glad we have some faithful community hanging out with us. Yeah, so here's a question about our souls. If we create AI or some sort of robot technology that then can self-replicate, and it develops the ability to feel emotions, to think in a very nuanced, multi-layered way like we as humans do, what differentiates that from us? Like, can something artificial evolve a soul?
Well, I feel like based on this individual right here, Vision from WandaVision, right? He's a prime example of that, and he has 2 sons. So I think that answers your question. Yes, it's possible.
Who is that character? I know nothing about. I thought that was a different Marvel character. It looked like somebody else.
So this character here, that's Vision. The premise of Vision in the MCU is that Tony Stark, which is not true to the comic book, it's actually Hank Pym, Ant-Man, but neither here nor there. Tony Stark creates AI to protect the world from intergalactic things. And the AI, like many AI movies before, when AI, artificial intelligence, is tasked with protecting the Earth, they see humanity as a threat. So Ultron, this superpowered AI death robot, apparently tries to destroy the world. Now, if you look closely at Vision's forehead, you can't see it, but there's a there's a stone there, right? And the technology of Ultron mixed with this, mystical space stone merged together and created this synthezoid artificial being with the capacity to feel and grow emotion and love. So that's the character Vision.
And so does that character, like, would you say that character has a soul?
That is a great question, because if we look at it from a theological understanding, chances are you would say no. If you look at it from, well, soul is what makes us who we are and sets us apart from one another. It's our signature. It's our personality. It's our hopes, dreams, fears. If that's kind of more of the argument, then you could say that the soul was developed within this individual. This is kind of like the superpowered version of Pinocchio, right? Or Pinocchio over time became a boy, but wasn't at first. So it's very, very, very good conversation, actually.
Yeah,
good question.
And it's hard to like parse out those things, because even like one of the things we were going to talk about is like how soul and body are connected. They're not like separate necessarily. But your soul is underneath in a certain degree, and like the body is where your soul gets expressed. Because you can, like, your soul doesn't exist in your finger. It doesn't exist necessarily in your brain exclusively, because your brain can't operate without a heart. So where does like the soul happen? Happens in a relationship, as expressed through all these things. And so parsing out, like, even between Pinocchio and Pinocchio's creator, like, could soul be breathed into another inanimate object from a soul to a soul? I think that's where people get into like the AI robot conversation. Like, what is consciousness? Can it be passed on? And there's all sorts of, I think, speculative questions there. Now, some people think our soul is connected to our bodies, like it's cerebral in its nature. Like, without the body, the consciousness goes away. But like I said, we can't figure out where the consciousness exactly resides. And there's ample evidence that consciousness transcends our brains, like it goes beyond our brains, to the point, you talk about near-death experiences, moments medically when people's brain stops functioning, but people are still creating memories. And this is, not necessarily traditional Christian theology, but people talk about past lives and having memories from some sort of consciousness imprinted in them from a different period of time. I don't know what I think about that. I think those are really fun conversations to entertain and like, to consider. I think there's possibility that our souls predated our bodies. If you watch the movie Soul, actually, part of that is that there's some sort of space where people are existing as souls prior to entering into a body. And there's lots of, especially with our Catholic brothers and sisters, there's a lot of developed frameworks for that. Like, so it's all gets really, really fun. But I think ultimately a soul is who you are at the deepest level. It's like it's you. And beyond skin color or gender or age or latitude, longitude of where you're born, it's who you are. And I do think it transcends. It goes beyond. So Alma asked the question, is soul the same as spirit? What do you think?
Well, there is an argument. I forgot. There's this book called The Economy of God, and it talks about what thing is located in where. And so like the body consists of blood, bone, and flesh. And then within the body is housed the soul, which is comprised of will, emotion, and mind. And then within that is the spirit, which is comprised of fellowship, consciousness, and this third aspect. But all to say that there are thoughts and perspectives that they are two separate items. I know that in some biblical context, the word is interchangeable. So it's a very interesting conversation. If I had to take a stab at it, I mean, it would be a guess. So I don't know. I don't know. I think it depends on the circumstance in which we're trying to understand. I feel like this spirit that we have is broader and connected, whereas the soul is more individually who Greg is, or who Chris is, or who Alma is, versus the spirit is a part of us is connected to a broader part. So spirit would be more communal, soul would be more individual, is how Gregory Stewart would describe it on March 1st, 2021. You know,
That's good. Yeah, biblically speaking, I think like you're on. I think I'm with you too, because I think that practically we use those words interchangeably a lot. Like it means like the essence or the heart of something, like the spirit of something, the soul of something. But most commonly, part of the challenge is that our theological frameworks come from books not written in English, and English in itself is basically like a combination or has a lot of influences from different languages. Mm-hmm. So like the word soul, this is what we talk about on Sunday, and the Greek New Testament is most commonly translated from psyche, which is where we get our word like your psyche, your consciousness, or your like, and then in the Old Testament, the word's escaping me.
Pneuma or something like that?
No, that's Greek. That's the New Testament. Pull it up right now because we can. We don't have to rush. It's nephesh is what it was. Mm-hmm. But there's other words too that are commonly translated in the Old Testament. So those are two different words that have their own meaning that we packaged into one word, even though one's from Greek and one's from Hebrew. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think the Greeks wanted to do the body, mind. No, is it soul, mind, spirit, body, mind, spirit? I tend to think of spirit more as like the mind in that ballpark, and your soul is the deeper thing of who you are. Mm-hmm. Oh, someone's at your front door.
Someone's at my front door, man. Always. Pesky neighbors.
Like the broader sense that you're using of like spirit as like more of a collective current that we're all in. Yeah. So the soul is sort of like a battery to our body, what gives it motion. Yeah. That I used that one on Sunday. Thomas Aquinas, a Christian theologian who developed some framework for this stuff that's often referred to. And they used the Latin anime for soul, which is again another word, and then we combine them all into one word in English, or soul or spirit or whatever. But that's their sense, that the soul was the thing that animated our bodies, and that inanimate objects don't have soul, but most living creatures do. They have some sort of breath of life or soul in it. Mm-hmm. And the difference being that humans have ability to reason and have willpower, and ask the big existential questions. And I actually think that there's a good chance that other life forms can do that as well. Like some of the parts of other mammals' brains are as developed, if not more than ours, specifically whales and dolphins, especially in the emotional, like spiritual parts of the brain. So I don't know what we do with that. I do remember thinking like as a kid, animals didn't have souls, that just humans did. I think I heard that somewhere in church, and I don't think I believe that anymore. Like I think the breath of God's life is in all living things, and even some like even non-living things reflect God's spirit, God's creative handiwork.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here's a question on this stuff. If souls go on beyond our bodies, what do we look like in that phase? What is it like to interact with other souls? Like, right. Do we lose like boundaries between me and you? Or do we maintain those? Like, what does it mean to be me without my body in a different space?
Is this like a while on this side, like while alive, or are you talking like afterlife stuff?
Both. Sure.
Because, okay, so when I hear soul, I think of James Brown, right? I got soul, now I'm super bad. And it's like this aspect of seeing a person's full authentic self and how they're able to express through art, through song, through dance. You're like, oh man, they got soul. Like, it's that essence of who they are. They're able to present that, whereas other people may not have that ability to present as authentically. So, they just seem more robotic, soulless, right? So I think that on this side of eternity, right, how does that exist? Well, you can't separate it from your body, because your body is what interprets the information around you and also expresses the information from within. So to say that it exists without the body, I don't think it can. I think it's okay to talk about, to analyze it as a part, as like two separate things. But as far as in its full expression, they can't be. On the other side of eternity, I think I get real interested about this, because to me, this is just to me, if it's not applicable, it's really hard for me to spend a bunch of time on it unless it's just entertaining. And there is some entertainment value in these conversations, but people can get like bent out of shape. Like entire theological practices are based on what happens after death, right? Or afterlife, depending on how you look at it. And man, it's just very interesting. I say all that to say this. The only example that I could point to is if Jesus came as the representation and example of what it means to be fully human, like the perfect example, both of God and what we are to look like as humans, and his resurrection was seen as a body that ate, had a hole, you touch this, you know what I'm saying? Like, shit, it's possible. There's an argument that when we are resurrected as well, we will also be resurrected in the form of what this body looks like, this thumbprint of God, right? So again, my argument on March 1st, 2021 is that you can't separate the soul from the body.
Yeah. Yes, I think I agree mostly. And I think there's like, there's so many questions that brings up, because
of course,
that's where you get into like the ethics of cremation versus burying the body, like, and the practical questions of like, well, if our bodies are resurrected, then in what age are we resurrected? Like if you died at 90, does your 27-year-old self resurrect?
If I lost a limb, do I have both limbs when I'm resurrected? Like, yeah, of course.
And to your point, one of the earlier points you made of this is in the realm of speculation. Like this does not affect our calling to love God and love others, and that's graduate level theology, to do that kind of stuff, because that's hard to actually walk the path of love and the ethical dilemmas that brings up. But this is more of like a speculative theology. And you're right, bad theology is when we like pick a camp based on maybe an interpretation of like a passage and then like divide over that. But I'm with you. Ultimately, we can't fully know. What we can do is like learn from the wisdom of those who have been thinking about this or talking about this, and the clues and hints that are given in scripture, which are not fully clear. Like they don't give us a full picture of like, the streets of gold in heaven as described in the New Testament. Like, right. I think it's a metaphor. Some people will be like, no, there's like actual gold and cool. Whatever, like that doesn't make or break my faith. And so, but to the other point around souls and bodies not being able to be separate, I think I disagree there. I think the soul is the primary essence of who you are. And the body is embodied for a season. It's that expression, I think it was C.S. Lewis, I don't remember, but it's you're not bodies with souls, you're souls with bodies, something like that. Like, and that's to elevate this thought of our soul life and what it means to be spiritual creatures. Because I think that in the realm of eternity, which is Alma's asking about, which is a space beyond time, it's kind of like a forever, it's hard you can't possibly explain it, but it's union with God forever. But there aren't like days, like it's not like time passes like here. At least that's what we philosophize about it and think about it. And so I think in that space, I just don't know what bodies, but I find it seems like it brings up more questions than anything to really have a specific understanding of what it means for our bodies to resurrect.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think our souls transcend the bodies. In this space and time, we can't exist as souls without bodies, maybe. But once our bodies fail us, I still think our souls go on even without them. And I don't know what resurrection a body means. Like,
no, that totally makes sense.
I guess it's primary. It's like the body goes on top of the soul, and they are tangled up, but the soul is like under it. It's like more foundational.
Right. No, I get that. I think the unhealthy way that perspective has shown itself in our history of theology is that because one has a priority, then the other gets neglected. And for a lot of Christian history, it's like, well, the soul is what you take care of. The body is evil. Therefore, I'm just going to negate anything that has to do with the body. And I can spend some time talking about that. So on the reverse, then, if we go back to this past Sunday and we talk about, okay, what are the things that nourish your soul's health? Every one of those items on the list, you have to use your body to do. So the livelihood of the soul is dependent on the actions of the body. Therefore, if you separate them as far as precedence or importance, chances are you're going to do harm to what is the most important, which is the soul. I'm not arguing with you there. I'm just saying how we choose to view it, it really impacts the health of both, right? Yeah. And that's why for me, it's hard to separate the two holistically. Again, if we're going to analyze and talk about the soul apart from the body, just for the point of, discussion, sure. But from kind of this like macro perspective, it's hard for me to say that they're separate.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially because us having this conversation is being done through our bodies. Like the access to our souls is impossible without bodies, at least as we are in this present moment.
Right.
And I think you're right. A lot of spirituality will overemphasize the soul spirit side and de-emphasize the material, like caring for our neighbor, feeding the hungry, like the actual real ramifications of physical life here, which I think that's like a heresy that the church has dealt with since like the Gnostic heresies in the first few centuries, where people overemphasize the spirit. And I think the whole idea of the incarnation of God coming in flesh is like, no, there's not either or. It's all spiritual in the sense it's all sacred and holy. It's just, for me, it's more so like who you are at the essence is deeper than all those things, though all those things are the ways in which you have access to your soul.
Yeah. And then to your point, I could be deemed ableist because there's individuals who don't have the full scope and spectrum of what the human body is capable of, yet their soul is super intact and probably healthier than yours or mine. So in that regard, of course, there is some differentiation between soul and body. At least there's an argument for that. So yeah, again, I default back to the spectrum or back to the idea of, I don't know. But it's fun. It's fun to converse about, and I think that if we view the bodies as in the same regard as we view the soul, I think health follows that. But yeah, interesting stuff, man.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
I'm with you. Should we read a Bible passage and play with it?
I mean, like, I think that's appropriate, right?
Cool. Since we're talking about resurrection of body and all that stuff, let's see if
you're going to share your screen, or are you going to share with the audience, or no?
Yeah, I'm going to share a tab. Chrome window. All right. Mind the advertisement. Can I like, whatever. Okay. But some may ask, how will the dead be raised? What kind of bodies will they have? What a foolish question. When you put a seed into the ground, it doesn't grow into a plant unless it first dies. And what you put in the ground is not the plant that will grow, but only a bare seed of wheat or whatever you are planting. Then God gives it the new body he wants it to have. A different plant grows from each kind of seed. Similarly, there are different kinds of flesh, one kind for humans, others for animals, other for birds, and other for fish. There are also bodies in heaven and bodies on earth. The glory of the heavenly bodies is different from the glory of the earthly bodies. The sun has one kind of glory, while the moon and stars each have another kind. And even the stars differ from each other. In the same way, with the resurrection of the dead, our earthly bodies are planted in the ground when we die, but they will be raised to live forever. Our bodies are buried in brokenness, but they will be raised in glory. They are buried in weakness, but they will be raised in strength. They are buried in our natural bodies, but they will be raised as spiritual bodies. For just as there are natural bodies, there are also spiritual bodies. I'll skip down to this verse 50. What I'm saying, dear brothers and sisters, is that our physical bodies cannot inherit the kingdom of God. These dying bodies cannot inherit what will last forever. But let me tell you a wonderful secret. We will not all die. We will be transformed. It will happen in a moment, in the blink of an eye, when the last trumpet is blown. For when the trumpet sounds, those who have died will be raised to live forever. And we who are living will also be transformed. For our dying bodies must be transformed into bodies that will never die. Our mortal bodies must be transformed into immortal bodies. All right, that's enough for now. That's 1 Corinthians 15.
Yeah, that's actually what that's what Mom was talking about, speaking about new bodies equipped for eternity. And Mom brings us another good point. Don't fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. This differentiates the body from the soul. Fear who can destroy both. Yeah, that's some good stuff.
Yeah, the big thing, and Paul seems to be saying, he's speaking so dramatically, like when it's all said and done, like there's some sort of new body, but it's a spiritual body, is what he's saying. Like, and we don't know what that means exactly. And I don't even know if Paul knows what he means, right? Like, I think you have this sense of like there is an eternal and will exist in a new form.
Yeah.
We don't know the precise how and when and like exactly the function of that. I think the ramifications here are so significant because some similar story is told in pretty much every spirituality, every religion in the world, and even some scientists who talk more dramatically about like the types of physics that we can't fully know. Like specifically, if you get into the conversation around consciousness, scientists don't know, and there's a lot of speculation around consciousness going beyond the material, and that there's maybe multiple dimensions and sort of thing. So I just think it's something that's so profound about our lives that we have a spiritual soul that the consequences are eternal. Like, I don't mean that in like a scary way, like do what's right, say this prayer or go into hell, but in our capacity to learn how to love, which I think is what part of this life is about, is expanding our ability to hold and experience and give love. And that carries forward. It's like, I don't know if when you go see a movie, do you do research beforehand or like,
nah,
do you read up on it? Is there anything that like you go do that you want to like know more about? Like before, like if you watch a UFC fight,
right.
Usually like do your homework on who the fighters are, what they're
so typically I like to watch things I already know about. That sounds bad, but for the most part, like for example, if WandaVision, right? I might do some research, like, okay, well, wait a minute, what did they show in this last episode, so that I could fully understand what's coming in the next episode. So there's some circumstances where I do that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I love doing that. Whether it's like I travel somewhere, like I want to know as much about the place as I can before.
Oh yeah.
Because it helps me Like,
Well, that's very different from a movie, Chris. Yes, I like to do research before traveling.
it's true. But sorry, yeah, you're right. You're right. Movies and WandaVision are different than going to Myanmar.
Yeah, a little bit.
But the idea of like being able to expand our capacity to hold that thing, I think we miss out on that opportunity. It's like I'm gonna reference Matthew 28, like, and Jesus saying stuff like store up treasures in heaven. Like when we expand our capacity in our souls, we cultivate a healthy soul that can give and receive love in expanded ways, which is a hard process. It requires growth, and it's often uncomfortable, and it's often done through challenge and suffering that we're stretched. Our soul is stretched as we forgive and heal. Like that's all part of the process. I think some of us want to retreat from that and just like have a safe, cozy life. And I think Jesus tells us, well, you're missing the treasure of heaven, which is an expanded capacity to love, which ultimately is to love God and hold God's love. I remember this is going to be a cheesy youth group analogy, but like if your cup is overflowing, right? That's what heaven's like, the goodness of God, love. If you have a bigger cup, like everyone gets God's love overflowing constantly. But when our souls are expanded to hold it more, it is a deeper experience. It's a different experience. It's not unequal. It's just we've grown in our ability to appreciate it, which I do think comes through suffering and living a life that is honest and open to it all. Sorry, I ripped out again there.
No, that's good, man. That's good. Now I'm just ready for you to break out the pizza and we hit the half pipe and skate. That was a skating reference, not any other reference. You mentioned youth group. I was just riffing out on youth group stuff. Never mind.
Nice.
I retract my statement.
We did have some skate stuff when I was a youth pastor. We put out every week for the kids, so it's a pertinent joke. It just went over my head.
All good, man. I think I'm all riffed out though for soul stuff.
Cool.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, we hit 30 minutes. Let's see. I think that's about it. We're good.
Let's see. Last comment from our faithful supporter: a body that will feel no pain, no sorrow, only the joy of being next to Jesus. Ooh, or the opposite. Dun dun dun.
Oh, I think everyone will be next to Jesus. It's just a matter of if they want it or not. And for some people, because that's a whole other discussion. Yeah, because what's the opposite of being next to Jesus? Like you're just on the other side of Jesus.
Well, that's a very literal term. What's implied is that you're furthest from Jesus, not just on the left or the right. Furthest meaning absent from. Yeah, dude. There was echo. What was that? Anyway, it made me think of this conversation that what's his name? He's a comedian from South Africa.
Trevor Noah.
Huh?
Trevor Noah.
Yeah, Trevor Noah, and he was on the podcast with Charlemagne, and bro, like it was a battle of wits, and Charlemagne was unequipped. He was unarmed. He was not ready for that warfare. Trevor Noah gave him that work. So good. But he used an analogy, and this is how he described it. He said that the difference with Christianity versus other religions, that imagine heaven is the club, and it's the best club, and you show up and you have a hat on or you have open-toed shoes, and they say you got to remove that and then you can get in. If you choose to do that, you get in. It's as simple as that. You just choose. And if you don't, then you sit outside and you don't have the fun. And then you have the weeping and the gnashing of teeth on the outside. But would you agree with, I mean, it's an oversimplified analogy.
Yeah. So first of all, I think the orientation towards the club and like those who don't have the good clothes would be flipped in the kingdom. So
it's not good clothes. It's
the right clothes.
But anyway, I'll let you finish.
Yeah. The right. I think it's more here's this club that everyone is invited to. Like all are welcome, all are here. And for some people, over the course of our lives, there's a choice to move against that.
Yeah.
It's like being at a party you don't want to be at is an experience of hell. Like, you know, maybe not like the traditional sense of like fire and brimstone, but like everyone's there and it's amazing and it's forgiveness and love and mercy and compassion. But there is, it's, if you're Scrooge, right? The whole metaphor of Scrooge, from like the posture of heart that is all about you doing everything for yourself. You don't need anybody or any help. And it's this pure pride. That person dropped in a party that is all free love and compassion will experience it as hell until their heart is melted and worn down. So that's kind of my eschatology of like, God gives grace to all, but God does not force God's love on anybody who doesn't want it. So people can turn the other way. And so I think that we have that choice. I just don't think that like God sends people somewhere where God is not, because that's the paradox. There's nowhere where God, if God is omnipresent, there's nowhere God isn't. So God's presence is everywhere.
I feel like this is the first time I heard that perspective, Chris. We've been rocking for a little bit.
I taught on it, and somebody's dad once got really upset at me about it.
I remember that message, and I remember hearing something different. And I remember what someone's dad did, and that was hilarious.
But that's it. If you read, that's the whole. If you read The Great Divorce, it's a metaphor for heaven and hell. C.S. Lewis, great book, a really fun book. Not too long, but the idea is this person goes from hell to heaven. Hell is a place where you get everything you ever wanted, and so it's kind of a picture of America. Like you have mansions, but you're 1,000 miles away from the next person.
That's what I remember. I remember that.
And so then that person goes on this trip to heaven, and it's really hard for them to understand. There's all these plays, metaphors with size and stuff. In the end, you realize it's all the same place. It's just a matter of his heart's condition towards pride and ego and selfishness that prevents him from experiencing God's love and mercy. And until that is melted and worn down, which is a hard process, because it's needing grace, it's needing forgiveness, it's recognizing your own sin and like complicitness in other people's suffering. As that happens, that's pretty much it. I'll stop there. But read that book.
Yep.
And that's it. Enough with the soul.
Yeah. No more soul.
No.
Soul's tired.
I hope not. Souls do get tired, but no more soul.
No, yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, continue to nourish your soul, Oak Life. If you're checking us out at a later time, don't be shy. You can still add comments. We can keep this conversation going after the life of this conversation. We out.